the prettiest?
Sure enough.
Am I the baddest mofo low down around this town?
Sure enough.
Well, who am I?
Sure enough.
Who am I?
Sure enough.
I can't hear you.
Sure enough.
Phil Davis, Ancestrylands, ancestrylands.com. Listen, folks.
You're now listening to
Contos.
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
Uncle Phil's in the house. How are you, folks? Happy Monday, folks. Oh, man, we got a lot to talk about in such a short amount of time. I actually have a call. Someone offered me a commercial property. Business as usual. Sometimes you don't need business to come to you. Sometimes you don't need to go to business. Business will come to you. That's the good thing about doing good business, folks. As you know, you are now live with Uncle Phil. Happy Monday, folks. Today is April 3rd. July. Jeez, I'm already in the summertime. Wouldn't it be great to be in the summertime, folks? Any which way, April 3rd, Monday just starts off with a kicker. I feel like, everything's held over the weekend until Monday comes, and then it's just a great deluge of things to talk about. We got a few things that we're going to cover real quick, folks. Excuse me. Is $100 too much to pay a barber? I don't say this. I mean, I have no hair, so I don't need to pay a barber for anything. But once a time I did have hair. And I ask because barbers they stand on their feet all day. They are literally there's no residual, no passive income for a barber. They literally, their skill is what they get paid for. There's no, at least from my understanding, there's no PTO, paid time off for a barber. It seems to be that, a barber is just a skills trades person that their money, their income is determined by, one, their skill, and then two, their time. Are we underpaying our barbers? And that raises the question. We're going to get into that a little bit because Jalen Rose, former NBA star Jalen Rose, commented on that, saying that he thought that $100 would be a fair price for a haircut. I don't know. I mean, haircuts are a thing that they're specifically identity to one person. When you get a lineup or a good haircut, man, the amount of confidence that a person has after having a nice haircut is immeasurable. It can do much for your self-esteem. And again, are we paying barbers pennies on the dollars? Has the barbers' prices kept up with inflation? As you know, folks, in more pressing news, Trump now has flown himself up or gotten himself up to New York. He will be indicted, apparently. There's a question about, I don't know. Even my mother, I just got off the phone with her a little bit ago about, the debacle that is, Donald Trump, now former President Donald Trump, now being prosecuted for apparently, sliding off and sliding out and paying a woman some hush money, which has never remained quiet. Former adult film star actress Stormy Daniels, allegedly. I mean, this is supposedly have happened. And, that was a whole thing during his presidency. And now it has reemerged that supposedly some campaign funds are used. We don't know. That's what that's the reason, the basis for the indictment. And, this all years later, we've never had a president be indicted on charges like this. So is this setting a new legal precedent that is a dangerous place for the country to go into? We'll talk about that a little bit. But apparently, it's the views and clicks for the news world. It's all the small stories like this one about his mugshot being released. It's not going to help anything if he runs for re-election. Again, it's the media circus now, the distraction. I'm only tapping on it because when my mother got done talking about what it seemed like the news propaganda that she just regurgitated to me, I asked her, I said, so you're buying into the media circus, the distraction of what is. And I always say that because the real thing that we should be focusing on is always in the other hand. It's not the thing we're focused on now. So we've got Trump, we got the LSU player Reese that, she's holding up the finger, white girl does it, it's fine, black girl does it, look at the arrogant black. Let me see here. Let me make sure. Look at the arrogant black. and then we all got to do that. So I'm going to stand up for the black girl on this one because no one said anything when the white player did it. And now that she's got to stay humble, and that's something I've talked about earlier, is that when you start to become successful, the first thing people ask you to do is be humble about it. You always have to eat humble pie, while the most arrogant motherfuckers are always the people who are on the bottom. They're the ones that tend to hate you, talk about you. And when I watched this story, I initially had the anti-black feelings, black girls showing off, but I didn't hear the whole story. Upon listening to the story, I went to more support. I think her name is Alicia Reese or Ashley Reese. LSC, let me make sure I get her name right. Let me put some respect on her name. Ashley Reese, basketball player, right? Or Angel Reese. Okay, yeah, Angel Reese. No, is that Angel Reese? Angel Reese. Let me make sure that's her. Got the right person here. Okay, apparently they might be sisters. There might be an Angel and an Ashley. Yeah, I guess that is LSU and okay, Angel Reese. Okay, so Angel Reese, yeah. So the young lady, congratulations to her. Winning the. But again, the people hated on her. Why? Why is it the Becky? She did it, and now all of a sudden, it's something wrong when the black girl retaliates. That's the problem I have. Let me make sure I got the right person here. LSU, was she LSU, right? LSU. Yeah, Angel Reese. Angel Reese. To Iowa's Caitlin Clark, pointing to the finger, the taunt. But again, apparently she had done it beforehand. So why is it okay? Why did we only capture the news when the black girl did it? I just don't understand it. And she shouldn't have to be apologetic. She won. Okay. Why does it always that when black people become successful, a black individual or a group at large, they always have to be humble pie? I'm not necessarily always into showboating, but respect to people who win and they did it. They generally the people, it's always this thing, you get successful, stay humble, stay humble, stay humble. And it's again, why are we trying to exist in a white model? If she wants to show off, Angel Reese won, the white girl did it to her, why can't she do it back? Now all of a sudden we have to make a big fiasco about it. You know what I mean? So yes, that, and Trump, these are all distractions, folks, distractions away from what really matters. Folks, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some other things, and again, we always distract. It's funny, this always comes up. They either pull Trump or something else to distract us all from the main stories at hand. The big story over the weekend was Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan Tate being released. That wasn't a weekday story. That story, they could have done that on a Monday, but did on a weekend because they know people probably weren't going to be paying as much attention as they would on a Monday story. So now we have Trump coming out. And his mugshot is the main story. That's what they want to talk about. Taking his mugshot and putting it out there for the parody, for more Democratic fodder. And again, the whole country. The thing I'm going to talk about is things that really should matter. And again, we're going to have a whole week or a month over people focusing on Trump's mugshot. And again, what do we need it for? I mean, does anyone not know who he is? I mean, is that any which way? Moving along, folks, because I won't get into this. McDonald's apparently is closing U.S. offices ahead of planned layoffs. Now, again, if you all aren't familiar, Amazon, I think, has done another second round of losses. Facebook or Meta is also doing more job layoffs. Excuse me, not losses. A second round of layoffs, I think, after Zuckerberg has said that layoffs would not happen. So, again, we don't see we had the bailouts for the bank. Now, if you don't know, Lennar, one of the home builders, they're asking for a bailout. We again are just putting, a Band-Aid on an open wound, a severed artery. We're trying to put some duct tape together to keep something from bleeding out. And again, are we aware of our own falling, our failing or our decline as a country? I saw a story earlier on Instagram. Someone was talking about after post pandemic, that across the board, this used to be just a black thing, the fourth and eighth graders and mostly black communities, but across the board, the test scores for reading comprehension and math are at a 30-year low. I mean, in the last 30 years, that's what, since what the 90s that this has been, the test scores have been this low. These are our children. Test scores are super low. And you would ask, some of the things that I'm going to give a gym right now is that I talked about free sites like IXL, the letter I, X is in like xylophone, and L is in lion, IXL.com. They don't pay me anything. I don't get promoted from them. And they're one thing I like about that company is that they have Common Core, all these classes or test subjects that you can click into, and a lot of it's free. I had my kids doing that during the whole pandemic. It was a great way to keep up on their learning. And again, we have kids being, failing right now. The lowest test scores in the US across the board for fourth and eighth graders, reading efficiency, reading comprehension. And folks, this has greater implications into the future because again, when you talk about the lack of reading comprehension, lack of efficiencies, these are going to be people who are going to be potentially, taking care of us when we're older. These are going to be potential lawmakers. Folks, before I get more deeper into the story, our show is being sponsored by everyhomelife.com. Every Home Life, where you can find amazing products. Again, I told you all about this light. I'm getting a couple more. I'm building, folks. I'm building. Everyone wants to, the studios and all of this stuff. You have to just start putting out content. You have to start building it as you fly. A lot of people are concerned about, you need to have this upfront. You can go into debt just trying to set everything up, have the nicest, most professional looking studio without starting to do the work. You need to do the work, reinvest your profits back into your business, and then reinvest more into getting an upgraded studio. That will come. But again, for right now, it's fine-tuning the message and building a brand. Everyhomelife.com, folks. You've seen them. I've talked to you about before. These are my sponsors. They sponsored the show. Actually, they sponsored the show for a month. Thank you to them. I've ordered a product off of them, the projection lamp light here. And this is what I ordered here, this projection lamp light. They do have some things on sale. Everyhomelife.com. They have really nice high-end stuff, as well as, things for people on a budget. So I encourage you to go to them, everyhomelife.com. Everyhomelife.com. They are a sponsor and they've got good products. They're building a brand too. You don't need to always go to the Wayfairs or the Walmarts. I've got my product in a few days. And I think that's something that people should support, smaller businesses, people trying to really make it out there that you can, you're not buying from the big box stores that, they don't care. You should buy from local businesses. And I bought from them. They're good company. They're good people too as well. All right. Any which way, let's move on, folks. Okay, so the U.S. says it cannot confirm China collected real-time data from spy balloon. We talked about spy balloons that they shot down again. Apparently, there's some other news source articles that's saying that the China balloons actually were scoping out military sites. And again, is this a lack of all the money we put into the military industrial complex? All the money that we put into policing the whole world, making sure that the whole world eats or doesn't eat according to our will. And China just flew these low altitude balloons right on into the country. It's it says right here they said they're not, and this is the whole thing about it. If they were to admit to this, then it would make the administration look bad. Like again, they got the intel on military sites. And again, why would they admit it in the first place? So who wants to believe this horse, right? Joe Biden administration said on Monday it cannot confirm reports that China was able to collect real-time data from a spy balloon as it flew over sensitive military sites earlier this year, saying an analysis that was still ongoing. Of course, why would they say it was able to? Well, I mean, in what world would they admit to this happening? Like we're supposed to believe this hogwash. It says NBC News on Monday reported that the Chinese balloon was able to transmit data back to Beijing in real time. I mean, how the hell does the news organization know this? And administration can. Of course, they're going to say no, they can't. And again, all this money going into the military, which I support. But again, why is home? Now, again, I'm going to go on a little bit because everybody was in their bag and in their feelings when Trump was talking about nationalism, not white nationalism, but protecting our borders, our country, the internal, the United States. China's now flying balloons over here years later because nobody wanted borders. And we didn't want to worry about, we were being racist over protecting our own country. I'm sorry, as a black man, I live in this country. I've got children. I talked to this about my wife the other day. I said, listen, you don't like masculinity, what we call toxic masculinity earlier, even though there's no such thing as toxic femininity. I don't understand how masculinity is toxic when it's been used to build this whole world that everyone exists in. I myself live in a world built upon the back of other men who built this world, and women too. But they did it in a competitive environment where there was masculinity at the forefront. And I told my wife the same thing. When the barbarians come into the country to try to take things over, my aggressiveness will now be in hot demand. When you have a boot at your throat that doesn't want to see you alive or wants to take over, because we're seeing that in Ukraine right now. And I don't care your political affiliations or whether you like it or not, what side you're on. But when you're being invaded, you don't have time to sit on whatever, ills or isms that you do now. It's time to fight or flight. That you got two options. You're either going to stay and fight or you're going to run away. And who knows how long you can go, because other countries may not take you in. As a black man, I don't think that I'm going to be able to just be accepted anywhere. But again, I told my wife, I said the same thing. Then my aggressiveness will be there. But for now, we want to temper it around. A man's natural aggressive nature is not something you can just put on pause or tell a man to hold off onto. If you have a man that's naturally aggressive, that means when he does things, he will do them aggressively. You can't say you need to holster that or filter that down for everything. Yes, there is a temperance every man or woman should have with their emotions. But again, aggressiveness is a person that goes out and works hard. Aggressiveness is a person like today. I don't even want to be on this mic right now. I want to spend time with my kids. They're on spring break. But again, the aggressiveness to want to do it when I don't want to do it is what's going to make a person successful. But again, we see here that, they can't tell you whether the balloon was there or not. We're spending too much time trying to be nice with everyone, and we're diluting you and I, the regular people, our power to be able to survive in this world. Not the power to, like some kind of power over people, our ability to survive, to thrive. I had a conversation with my wife last night. She was like, I told her how much money we have. She's like, why is it only that much? I said, well, we didn't pay, $3,000 to our tax guy. We have tax bills to pay. We've paid $2,600 for our rent. We paid another $3,000, for household bills. By the time I counted up, what had gone out, it was like 15K just in 1 month. And that wasn't all the little micro transactions that happen. And we don't try to live above our means. I do run a profit in my business, and we do are making income. But I said, and again, we didn't have income for the 5 months that my third child was born. I said, where the hell do you think we got all this money coming from? Don't grow on trees. And she sat there and chuckled. And I told her, I said, again, in your mind, money grows on trees. In your mind, masculinity can just pop up out of nowhere. You take a guy who's a wimp or a guy who's not, aggressive, and all of a sudden you want him to stand to the forefront and you go back to being hiding behind. You can't pick and choose when you want things in your favor. You cannot do that in life. You can't just pick when you want to win. When the conditions are going to be favorable, because you want them now. That's not how life works. And she wasn't living in reality. She wasn't. So I had to shut her down. I was just like, no way. I was like, you should be the amount of money, and again, I love my wife for it, and I can't stand her sometimes about it, because again, sometimes she treats the money that we have, the savings we have, as like it's nothing. It's more money than we've ever saved before in our lives, separately or collectively. Yeah, again, but and I told her, I said, one of our biggest expenses is that we have children. The money you spend on children, if you didn't have kids and you just lived as a couple or as a single person, you'd have a lot more money. I said, we would be probably millionaires by now, with how well I've done in business and everything else without having kids. But I love my kids, but kids are a huge expense, a very huge expense. So trying to put that much pressure on a man to just over succeed. You can't do it. You can't expect people. You can't win every one of them. Any which way, moving on. Do you all know what the BRICS are? The BRICS. I know black people are gonna go BRICS. You know who's selling? No, we're not talking about those BRICS. We're talking about the BRICS. The what is this? Let me look up. The BRICS is I think is what China, Russia, um, what is this? China, Russia. Yeah, okay. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which now other countries are joining these emerging economies that are kind of combining together. Think, okay, I'm gonna give you the white explanation, I'm gonna give you the black explanation. White explanation is a couple small businesses, let's just say they're Brazil, China, Russia, India, South Africa, who don't normally can compete with a Walmart, decide that they're going to kind of band together and do businesses to be able to combat against Walmart, which we would say is the US. For the black people, we'll just call it like this. A few small-time drug dealers decide that they're going up against the kingpin, and what they're going to do is the corner boys are going to band together and buy their own products and create and just outbeat the kingpin. Simple explanation. That's what the BRICS are, okay? And the big top dog is the US on this. So again, you have emerging economies. For the people who don't know, because my listeners, everyone may come from a different background, is that when you, from my understanding, when you're buying or a product is being bought, let's say, I don't know, a Jordan sneaker, it's bought in US dollars. The world's global currency is traded in dollars. So, everything is based on a value of how much it costs in dollars. It is then transferred, let's say you're buying South Africa would normally have to sell, there's a lot of countries in South Africa, but country A has to sell something to country B. Country A has to sell it in US dollars, even though country A has a different currency than country B. Country B buys it in US dollars, but then has to transform it or convert it back into their actual national currency. That's one of the problems. So you can see now the US doesn't have that problem. We're trading in our currency and everyone is operating, buying everything according to our currency. So what we do is we charge people, or there's a charge for transferring whatever the value of $1 is to, let's say, a rupee. In India, it's rupees, not rubies, but rupee, or I think it's RUPEE, or shekels in whatever country. They have to convert it back in there, which means that they're paying extra fees. Like when you go to a bank, that's not yours, you got to pay $3 withdrawal fee. Well, if you go to your natural bank, you don't have to pay a withdrawal fee. So that extra $3 taxing over time. So they're saying, you know what? Let's trade in a gold-backed standard. They're trading according to a gold standard, which no one now has to trade and transfer into dollars. They're kind of moving away from that. So we're looking at this is an emerging an emerging phenomenon that's happening, because once upon a time everyone operated actually off the gold standard, and then it was moved to the US, the dollars, when the world, central banks became centralized. So it's again, since World War II, this is our story coming from Yahoo News. We're going to get into it a little bit. I know a lot of people are like, I want to listen to financial stuff, but you should, because eventually you're going to be broke. So since World War II, the US dollar has been the world's strongest currency. We have been the strongest currency. This is why you can go over to Mexico and flaunt your dollars. American man, this is good. You see the women come over there,
Damn daddy.
right? Now that's turned into a shout out to the people in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. That's why you have more buying power when you go to other countries, is because the US dollar is the world's strongest currency. Any which way, it's not only a serious threat. I think it's inevitable. Because again, it could be a serious threat to the US's crucial influence on the world stage. We went through 3 stages after World War II. This is a little history for anybody who doesn't know. The U.S. biggest economy was the biggest economy in the world. In the 1970s, global banking basically became dollar central. So before 1970, it was gold, and now again it was dollar. Everything was considered, you had to buy it according to how much it costs in dollars. That's a strong position. That means your currency is the currency everyone has to go by, which means that you have more circulating dollars outside of the US It's not just like here's my game. When have you ever seen a South, somebody like let's say you're trying to buy something at Walmart. How come you don't pay them in South African, whatever their currency is? How come Indian people here don't when they want you want to buy something from your store, get a haircut, why don't they pay the barber in rupees? You wouldn't accept it. You would accept dollars. Okay, well that actually is a strength of America is that you can go anywhere and you don't need to change out a US dollar. The only difference is sometimes you go to other economies, you might be overpaying. But again, that's the thing. Your dollar is strong wherever you go. You can go to Antarctica and trade with a polar bear. Let me get 2 seals over there, bro. Any which way. And it became with the fall of the Soviet Union, that was former Russia. The entire world, more or less, came under domination of the US dollar. China and Russia started building a alternative block of currency now that they're drifting away. So what does this mean for the US? Economic experts comment in response to China's ongoing efforts to disband from the dollar. I think Venezuela has joined, the Philippines may be joining too as well. That could change things for people who are possibly thinking about retiring in the Philippines. I've seen some nurses that I've worked with, they've retired too as well into the Philippines because they could, a couple 100,000, man, you could pretty much retire and live the rest of your life out in the Philippines very comfortably. Much better than you could here. So, over the last 2 decades, the US dollar has lost 12 percentage points of the market share, falling from 71 to 59. This is going to, and again, when them Jordans, for the black folks, when them Jordans start costing double what they're costing now, it's going to turn sneakerheads into, it's going to be a big issue. It won't matter until the Jordans start to go up for most people. I don't think the long end, this is another person said, how viable is China's alternative? I don't think in the long run that yuan, which is China's currency, is actually a threat. That it's ever become a dominant currency in the world because the Chinese communist system is not open enough. Yeah, and that is US system's very open. That's why I was talking about. You'll find a dollar. You can go to Cairo right now and people will trade. You can buy something using US dollars. In other countries, like again, we don't. Walmart does not accept another currency other than US dollars. You can't go and pay for chips in anything other than US dollars. Black people, you can't buy your Chinese food in yuan. They want US dollars. So again, that's one of the reasons why is that China is limiting itself by not being open. And that's one of the limiting factors. But again, a lot of other countries not buying or going on to a gold standard, if that's what they're going to use as a basis, that's definitely going to have some impact on what we're buying, because that means that a lot of goods that we have imported from China, hell, the light behind me was made in China. Most of your items are made in China. So that means that, and I'm not a financial expert, that means that again, we could have further years where inflation, or I don't want to say hyperinflation, but price inflation will continuously go up because again, we're importing so much than what we are exporting. US does not, the gross domestic product, what is made in the US? We don't even make TikTok's not even made in the US. We buy everything that's made somewhere else because labor is cheaper somewhere else. So again, when you're bringing everything in and countries start to become more economically viable, that means that it's going to kind of cost you a few more, pennies or dollars to bring those items in. And we understand that the people who bring those items in, the manufacturers and the distributors that take them to retail stores, those are going to be the people that are going to end up passing those extra costs onto the consumers. So for all the people that don't watch this, when you see bread go up another dollar or two, that's what's happening to you. That's what's happening to all the prices. Even your cheap bread, when it's no longer 99 cents or $2 or $3, when it's $4 or $5, $6, now you understand that the US economy, we don't, there's no made in America. Well, I know there are made in America bread places, but again, when everything is made in America back again, the prices will now start to stabilize. But right now we got to pay because everything is shipped everywhere else. Russia ships a lot of wheat globally. So, and again, this is the other problem with this is that if the US is not making any kind of real changes, if we just keep printing money, then what's going to end up happening is you're going to allow these other countries able to get stronger. It's the same sense of, a big kid bullies a weaker kid, but every time the kid comes back a little bit stronger, eventually over time, big kid gets knocked out. So, that's, look at this. Brazil, China strike a trade deal agreement to ditch the US dollar. I mean, as this becomes more of a thing, a economic powerhouse is not about inclusion, diversity, and all of these other issues that you want to try to. It's good. What they're going to do is they're going to contain this here. It's going to get contained into the world. My biggest fear is that, again, this happening over a long period of time, you got people retiring. That means that a lot of people who are retiring now, which is why I urge people, man, if you're retiring, man, unless you try to work as long as you physically can, because again, your price is fixed. You could be on a fixed income all you want. Okay. But again, I've covered videos before about Social Security being insolvent. Them going to be, they're having to reduce Social Security payments. I think it was in 20 years or something, like, or 10 years. And not only that, if you're retiring now, and this changes my plans of retiring at 55. I'm only 42. But again, if you don't have some way to keep money coming in, some kind of passive or residual income, then it's going to be hard when you're on a fixed income to deal with the inflation prices that come in. Most of the people I talk to that are about to retire now, they look at Social Security like, hey, man, I'm going to be making this for the next 20, 30 years till I die. And it's like, okay, even if you stayed at that price, inflation is going to just creep out of you. And in 10 years, when you're 60 something or 70 something or 70 retiring at 80 years old, you're not going to go back on a workforce and get a high paying job. It's just not going to happen. Any which way, folks, to our main story here. Everybody who has hair more than likely goes to a barber, right? Barbers, I like barber. I got a few families. Shout out to Barber, to Booster Barber, one of my cousins there, Uncle Mel, people who are barbers, man. Salute to you all. Like I said before, Jalen Rose, former basketball player Jalen Rose, I think he played for what, the Pacers? Jalen Rose, hey, I said, how much do you pay your barber? He said $100 should be the minimum. You think that's right? Oh, you know what? Let me touch on one last thing about the increased cost. That means for all the black people out there, that means when China is increasing the cost, your weaves will cost a lot more. For anyone who buys PlayStations will cost more. Jordans will cost more. When the BRICS, if they're doing this and they're able to get a stronger foothold by making more trade deals and can become more economically viable with the BRICS system, that means that, even I'm sorry to say it, but weaves, nail polish in the white communities, everything that's imported, your Toshibas, your Chivis, everything will be more costly. Manufacturing cars will be more costly. So again, what we have to move back to is people making more money, building stuff back into the U.S. But that's going to have to happen after everyone. You're going to have to actually like the U.S. in order for that to happen. Okay, moving back along, let's get back to our main story. Former NBA player and ESPN announcer Jalen Rose said that men, not women, I guess, should spend a minimum of $100 to their barbers. He generated a lot of conversation between barbers and customers alike. And I would say this: it depends on where you are. Not every market can support this, $100, and that depends on how good you are. So and here in Milwaukee, this is a person that owns is Julian Smith, owner of G's Clippers, one of the largest barbershops in the state, in the country, with 30 chairs. They have cut a lot of NBA stars from Milwaukee. He said, "Be hard pressed to find a barber who would admit to charging $100 in Milwaukee, but they do exist." I would think these would be for traveling barbers that come to do in-house appointments, like if they're a barber going to someone's house for a private appointment, maybe then you would get a little bit more. I try not to knock barbers who charge those amounts, and we don't charge that at my shop. Again, it makes to say is that, charging that much, how much could people afford that in these times? You know what I mean? I remember the feeling of getting a haircut and my hair looking good, man. Just walking around, talk about wanting to go up to talk to any girl or looking good, a great feeling of satisfaction. And again, barbers, they have to stand on their feet all day. They have to do the cut that the cut has to be they almost have to be perfect every time they do it. The skill. And I mean, $20 for a cut with people that may or may not tip. I mean, I don't know what the going rate is for haircuts nowadays, but again, it begs to ask some questions like, barbers are one of those professions. They're kind of like nurses, man. They're pivotal to the thriving of the world. What businessman is not without a good shave or a cut when doing business? I mean, barbers are one of those the lifelines of society since barbers have started cutting hair. Or else we're all just gonna have dreadlocks, like old ancient man. Smith 52 said that I'm sorry, Rose's comment sparked a discussion about fair pricing, valuing the work of people in the service industry, and the unique, almost sacred relationship between barbers and clients in the Black community. I think this is all over, though. I mean, because again, I have when I did have longer hair at one point, not just when I had hair, I had longer hair, I had a curly hair. So I sometimes go to salons because salons knew how to actually deal with the curls differently than a barber. Barber mostly cuts for waves. I had the ability to do my hair in curls, not a jury curl, but nice curls, or put them down flat and do some waves. My children's hair are like that, So sometimes they might go to a salon, or a salon would be a better term, where they not necessarily do women's hair, but they do men's hair. And they do have places where men can go for barbers, but again, doing extra things to the hair, like curling it and stuff like that, you need a salon for that. So even at a bald head, in Staten Island, I used to go to this one place, a salon, and they would do a nice straight razor over my head, cream and everything, warm it up. I don't know what she was, Middle Eastern European woman, fine looking woman, but she did my hair, didn't really speak a lot of English, and I always tipped her very well. It was nice. I don't remember what she looks like, but she smelled good. That was always appreciated. Woman going to be that close on your lips with a razor, she better smell damn good. I'll tell you that. And he said one of the main reasons why the haircuts are kept reasonable is that the hair grows back fast. So it would stop a lot of customers from coming back. There are a lot of single mothers out there trying to make ends meet, and we don't want to create an extra financial burden on them. So we keep prices around $20 to $30. But is that affordable for barbers, man? You know what I mean? As skilled as barber are, they can make a man look crisp. I mean, I'm seeing Jalen Rose on ESPN, man. Crisp hairline, man. Yeah, I don't know about all but everybody has their hairstyle. I'm not going to knock his hairstyle any which way. I think Jalen, he said, like I said, and here might be a good business model for barbers out there. For barbers who really want to make some good money, why not do house calls? In certain neighborhoods that might be a little questionable. But how about for a business model? You actually have people can get their hair cut, and you make an appointment, they show up at your house, kind of like DoorDash, but you just get a haircut. It probably already happens. And he says, I don't charge more because you happen to play for the Milwaukee Bucks. You're a Shaq. He says, they give me $200, but that's because I travel to them for their hair. Hey, look at that, right? It's just what they give me. That's what they're doing for a travel cut. Now, I don't know, but honestly, I definitely would pay for a person to come and travel to get my hair cut instead of going there. One of the problems with the barbershop is the guy you want, if he's good, there's probably tons of people that are going to be waiting there for him. You got to come at the awkwardest hours to get the cut, not wait in line. Even if you have an appointment, there's typically they can be late or whatever else. But if they have an appointment to come to you, it's probably going to be at the time where the cut can be done. They didn't have this when I was younger and had hair, but I think it's a great thing. I probably would pay my barber to come to me just for the convenience. You know what I mean? And it says that again, Jalen Rose, he's speaking from a position where he's at in life. But again, it says everybody knows Jalen Rose was capping. Shout out to the cap. Stop the cap, Jalen. He with a net worth over $50 million. He may be a little out of touch. Yeah, I agree with that too. But this guy is Richard Armistead, a barber from Aggie Skipper. He's been cutting hair since he was 11. I mean, that's a good trade for someone. He's 49 years old. He's been cutting hair for 38 years. But again, I've never met millionaires that are barbers unless you start an actual business model with it. Again, even for barbers, owning a business is the only way to get off your feet, because at 80, are you going to still be doing a barber? Owning a barbershop is always going to be the greatest amount of freedom for a barber from getting away from the chair. He says, when I was cutting hair in Minnesota in 94 near Mall of America, I was getting $20 haircut then. while cuts in Milwaukee was for $13 for an adult and $8 for a child. And that was 29 years ago. Milwaukee ranks on the lower end when it comes to men's haircut compared to the rest of the nation. The average men haircut is $43. I know in New York, definitely used to cost about 20 something dollars for in Staten Island for a haircut at the time. I still would tip the guy another 40. It's like 20 for the hair and then 20 for the beard if you got a beard or something serious. So I don't know. When I lost my hair, it was because I had nice hair. It was a little. I had a little bit about a 5-year gap of not having the confidence that I have now. Being bald, because it was one time my mother said, she's like, you know what, but you look good for being bald. And that's where I really realized that you have to accept being bald. It's nothing's wrong with it. It's okay. And honestly, shaving in my face and trimming my hair or whatever else you could say, that it actually gives me a sense of self-management, self-care. It's quite rewarding. Any which way, I'll leave it up to you folks. And they say most men haircuts in New York 118. Whoo, boy, I'm glad I don't get my haircut anymore. Seattle 60, Chicago and Houston 53. That's quite a bit for a haircut, folks. Y'all let me know what you think. I mean, should barbers be paid more? Is $20, is $100 to a minimum too low? I would take it that's for adult male or men. That too little for a haircut for today's market with inflation? I don't know how barbers do it. I think it's fascinating to learn how to cut hair or being able to cut hair. I cut my kids' hair, but that's only because I don't really care how they look going to school. They're not winning a fashion contest, so I give them the old dad, throw it out and even it up. Some days it looks great, some days it doesn't, but that's part of growing up. My dad cut my hair. Many a day, my dad has messed up my hair to my, trying to be cheap, save a few dollars. My dad going in there and cutting my hair. Oh man, I forget one day, man, I was going out to a club. My brother, if he's watching this, he'll probably laugh his ass off at this one. But I had a fro. I was trying to grow it out, and it was like maybe 4 inches, 6 inches when you can get cornrows. Oh man, and my dad was like, yeah, let me trim your hair or whatever else. And I was like, this is probably gonna not be good. And my dad cut it way too low, and I remember almost being in tears, man. My hair would not, it was no longer a fro, it was too short. He cut 4 inches, it was more like 2.5. I was so upset, man. My brother could see it, man. I was almost in tears. And my dad, man, shout out to my dad. He was good about it. I think he saw he messed up. And he didn't acknowledge it, but I could see he acknowledged that he had like messed up my hair. But hair grows back. I was just sensitive about it. I was a kid, man. I was like 13, 14, maybe, 14, 15, whatever. Any which way, but the hair grows back, man. Any which way, folks. I hope you had a good Monday. Shout out to people on the West Coast. It's about almost 2 o'clock right now. Hope you're having a good day. I got a phone call. I got a business phone call, man. I'm excited to hear about this, man. People offer me commercial properties. We'll see what's going on, folks. We'll talk more business maybe tomorrow, if not next week. Folks, have a great Monday. Don't listen. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to close it out with this one, man. What we got to do is stay focused on the things that really matter. You got to keep your mind off the media circus, the stuff they're trying to get you to do for views. You got to watch stuff that really matters and that's going to affect your bottom line. You know what I mean? It's if you need to get away from it because you're in that world, fine. Folks, you gotta stay on top of what's going on in the world that really hits your bottom dollar. Ancestrylands is a place to do it. Thank you for our sponsor, Every Home Life, folks. The link to the website will be in the description section. Every Home Life, please go and buy yourself something from there. Say Ancestryland sent you. They should be tracking this because I want money. Any which way, folks, have a great Monday. For everybody in Pennsylvania, enjoy your kids being home on spring break. I know they're driving you crazy. You can't wait for them to get back to school. Any which way, folks, have a great one. See you back tomorrow. Donate to the show. $ Ancestrylands on Cash App. Ancestrylands on Venmo, folks. I am your illustrious host, Uncle Phil. I hope you've been educated, enlightened, and entertained. Take care. See you soon.